Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue. On this episode, we have a gentleman by the name of Rick Farr from Old Air Products down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, Old Air Products is the company that, let's just say, made our big green Suburban cool again, literally by installing some wonderful aftermarket air conditioning in that thing. But before we get to that, before we talk to Rick, what we're going to do is, as we always do, tell you to go and check out our classified section, of which we have 25 to 30,000 vehicles, as well as our auction, so you can go and find your perfect vehicle to put in your garage. So give us a couple of seconds, maybe 2 or 3 at the most, and we'll be right back with Mr. Rick Farr from Old Air Products. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. On this episode, we have Mr. Rick Farr from Old Air Products down in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And this is a gentleman that has some, well, I'm going to say one hell of an interesting backstory when it comes to building cars, racing cars, outfitting cars, and everything else. Rick, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about y'all?
Doing all right, man. Doing okay. How's your Friday going?
It has been very, very well so far, so no complaints there.
Okay. So, all right, let's just dive right in. So you have a pretty deep past when it comes to automobiles and everything from engine building to racing to driving to everything. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I was, I'd say, very lucky in my early days to be able to see a lot of different things, anywhere from heavy construction equipment, got involved in racing and of course, working on my own vehicles and all. So I had my hands in quite a few different things that it gave you a lot of early knowledge.
So how did you get into it? Like, from the mechanical side of it, was that parents? Was that just environment? How did you first start dabbling in mechanics?
Yeah, my dad and I worked on a few things together, and then he actually purchased me an old 37 Ford pickup when I was still in high school, and we got to work on it a little bit together. And then, of course, once I got out into the real world and went to work for a heavy equipment company, then I was hands-on a lot with the heavy equipment, and then, of course, working on my own car, which was a 67 Camaro SS. And boy, would I
Okay.
like to have that one back. But and then the guys that I worked with down there, there's a couple of them that ran dirt track cars. So they invited me one night, and I took it hook, line, and sinker. I was there from there on. That's all it took.
So what was that like? Do you remember your first dirt track race?
Oh, I went to go sit up in the stands and watch. Of course, that didn't last very long. I had to get down there where they were in pits and figure out what that was all about and all. And it was somewhat a little bit of the crude side back then compared to what it is now, for sure. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I say, I was hooked from then on. I didn't miss any after that.
So was the dirt track, was that your first experience with any kind of formal racing?
Other than doing a little bit of street racing with my Camaro, straight line stuff, yes, sir. That was the first of it right there. And just a little history of that. It was what they called a modified car, was,
Okay.
hopped up V8 type thing. And then we also had a figure eight car.
Oh man.
So that was really interesting. And we ran 6 cylinders in those. So yeah, those were the early days. It was neat.
So were they straight sixes in there?
Straight sixes. There's a little 236 cylinder. Had to
Really?
run a 1 barrel carburetor, and you had a reground camshaft and you just took the jets out of the carburetor, and that was it. Yep.
Really? So what
Yes,
kind of
sir.
power? What kind of power would you get out of those things?
They get after it pretty good. They sure would. Later on, a couple of years after that, I started doing a little of building myself on those things and modifying the heads and so forth, and actually was able to get a store-bought camshaft from Crane, one of the first ones, on the thing
Yeah.
for a 6 cylinder. So yeah, it was really neat. Sure was.
Huh. Okay. So you started, so the big equipment that kind of got, would you say that got you into the mechanical side of things, working on stuff like that? And was
Yeah,
that just big diesel stuff or gas powered stuff or?
yeah. Other than working on my own car, that little Camaro and all, yes, that I got to see a variety of things, and that could be anywhere from rubber tired loaders to dozers and scrapers and rollers and stabilizing equipment, and then a little bit into the heavy trucks, type thing. So
Okay.
I got to see a variety of things. I sure did.
Okay. So then, all right. So now you go to the dirt track, you see what's going on there. That kind of gets you rolling a little bit. So then, how did you make the decision, and because you went originally just with some friends to view the race, right?
That's true. Hmm.
And so then, how did you go from just being a spectator to kind of diving right in and being like, all right, I have to be part of this.
Well, it was, you know, love of building motors more than anything. So got involved in the six cylinder deal. Then later on started doing a little bit of the V8 stuff. And then especially after I decided to try my hand at driving for just about a year and a half on the thing, I was doing my own motors and all, of course, for those right there. But
Okay.
the more expensive and better stuff came later on the thing when I figured out the behind the wheel wasn't for me.
Well, yeah, that's if you were building and driving, that's a lot to take on. There's no question about that.
It was a one man show there for a little while, but of course, my dad was big support to it and so forth. So yeah, we had fun.
So, for those that don't know, tell everybody what a sprint car is and how it might differ from, say, a standard car on a pavement track.
Well, a sprint car is it's a tubular chassis. Most of them have straight axles on the front with, of course, a quick change rear end and a solid axle on the back. And they run a torsion bar rear suspension and front suspension, although some guys do put coilovers on the front of them on the thing. You'll see anything from a 305 class nowadays all the way up to the 410s, like the World of Outlaw deals, which are 900 plus horsepower for a
Jesus.
13 1400 pound car with a wing on it and driver. Yeah.
Oh my God. So,
Yes, sir.
God, that's got to be terrifying to drive. I mean, maybe not. I don't know, but that's at 900 horsepower, 1,300 pounds. That's a little crazy.
I got to hot lap the 305 a couple of times, and I can tell you this: you need to have it pointed in the direction you're going to go when you go the gas, because it's going to get you there real quick on the thing. So yes, they're fun on the thing.
So how much of that are those cars, right? Because when we see them, if anybody's watched them on TV, right, you have these tiny short wheelbase cars with this massive arrow wing on it, right? So, and I think the type of speeds that you like, what kind of speeds? Because is it half mile oval? Is that generally what they run?
No, you'll see anywhere from a quarter mile racetrack, 3/8, and then a half mile on the deal. So just according to the racetrack and racetrack conditions as to what kind of top speed you get. And
Okay.
but usually, in any dirt tracker will tell you on the thing, the race is going to be run from the corner down to the other end. Just being able to get around through the corner and then accelerate down to the straightaway.
Okay. And let me ask you, how do you, because, I ran dirt track twice just to try it.
Hmm.
And there is, you watch, guys like yourself and the professionals do it. And it almost looks like a ballet dance. You go out there and these cars are sideways 100% of the time. And the car control that you guys exhibit is simply astonishing to me.
It is, and the people sitting up in the stands being able to watch it don't have a really good realization of what's going on with the guys sitting down there, because
Right.
you've been in one. Once you get in there, there's all kinds of noises going on and everything, and like you say, it's pretty much loose the whole time. So
Yeah.
it isn't what it looks like inside that cockpit. Where the guy's driving it. That's for sure.
So let me ask you this, because how do you practice for that? Because I grew up in the Northeast, right? So the only time that you were able to slide a car is if you were out in the field playing around, or if it snowed outside and you can go and play and just drift in any parking lot you could find. How do you practice for something with, 5, 6, 700, 800, 900 horsepower that slides around on dirt in a constant drift? Like, how do you prep for that?
Well, there's a lot of places that have uh, driving schools.
Okay.
And there is one here in our area. It's called Smiley's Driving School, and he has the 305s or the 410s, either way, for you to purchase a schooling with him, to where that you go to a classroom deal to learn about the car and how it's set up and so forth. Then you go out to the racetrack and they put you in the seat and they stage you up to speed of whatever you feel comfortable with, making laps with it. So
Okay.
that's one way for a guy to get started and get a little bit of feel of it. Other than that, it's called seat time.
Yeah. Okay. And so once you get into the car, all right, you've been bitten by the bug. You know that you want to do it. What do you think for an amateur, somebody that's just getting into it? What do you think a one season would cost?
More than what they want to know about, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
it is a money funnel, let me tell you, for sure. And the other part of the deal that I did over the years a lot of, and everybody has to do it, and that's chase sponsors. You
Yeah.
gotta, for the most part, you gotta have some little help here and there. I don't care how little it is, whether it's a case of oil or oil filter, or a new right rear tire, or $50 here, $100 there. And of course, the stuff nowadays, that's just a drop in a bucket of what's needed to make them go, on the thing.
Right.
But yeah, that's what it takes. There's not too many people that are fortunate enough to have the resources just to go in there single headed and do it. You got to have help.
Right. And is it so when you were to do it, I'm assuming you'd also have a crew and a team of people that would help you during every race.
Mike, you see all kinds. You'll see guys that come out there by themselves, and you'll see them come out there maybe just with their wife or just with their buddy. And there's just 2 or 3 man deals. And you'll see some guys that come out there and they'll have 8 or 10 people with them. There's just what kind of friends and following you have doing it, for sure.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So now, Rick, are you born and raised in Texas?
I am. I born in Dallas, in 1953. There's a little telling how old I am now, but been here my whole life. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So now you did the big heavy stuff, got an engine building, did the sprint cars, right? And
hmm
now you are working with Old Air Products. How long you been with Old Air?
It's going on about 18 years.
Oh, wow. So
Yep.
you've really seen the progression of modern air conditioning systems in basically newer cars or older cars, right? Like the retrofit systems.
Yeah, where I came from, I did a lot of mechanic work myself and did the part stuff, and so I saw a lot of the modern stuff that are at that time of air conditioning and all.
Yeah.
Then whenever I went to work for Old Air Products, boy, did I have a surprise of trying to figure out and learn, the old systems of the older cars, to be able to help here and learn the aftermarket air conditioning part of the thing, the units and all that we manufacture here. So there was a big learning curve for me, even though I thought I was, number one AC guy because I'd done so much of it, for a living and on the side and so forth. So yeah, it was a big learning curve for me.
Okay. Because and for those that don't know, like one of the things is when we did our big 81 Suburban road trip, right? And our
hmm
series is coming out actually next month. The whole series will be out and you'll be able to watch it. Um, one of the stops we made was to Old Air Products because Suburban didn't have air conditioning. And going in, like you say, you think you know certain things about manufacturing processes and just components in general. I had no idea the amount of knowledge, the amount of manufacturing, the amount of tech that actually went into retrofitting an older vehicle with a new air conditioning system. And I was blown away. The manufacturing side and Old Air has their manufacturing facility down there. Um, just blew me away to see that in person because I think a lot of people just say, well, yeah, I'm going to order my system. It comes in a box. I'm going to put it on. I will tell you straight, you have no idea what goes into manufacturing and making these systems. It's not like a fairy just puts these parts in a box and it goes out to you. No, the technology behind it, I couldn't get over it, Rick. I was
Yeah.
absolutely blown away.
Yeah, there's a lot of engineering that go into it, especially, for instance, a vehicle specific unit like what we did in Big Green.
Hmm.
So you have plates to mount the unit, and you have pre-existing plans for vents and controls and condenser mounting and aluminum tubing and so forth and all for it. So it's all a lot of engineering went behind it to make all that vehicle specific, like what you're talking about.
Yep. So when did you first start doing retrofits in older cars? How many years ago was that?
Well, I actually have never done the aftermarket air until I saw it here at Old Air Products. Everything I worked on was already had air in it, factory air
Okay.
from the factory type deal.
Sure.
So what I was doing was, of course, compressors and condensers and
Hmm.
hoses and so forth and all, uh, for a living and on the side also. So
Sure.
that's what I was educated in and had experience in.
Okay. Did was there a point where, I mean, you've been there 18 years, which 18 years ago is not, I mean, you do the math and you're still in the 2000s, right? So it's really, it doesn't seem that long ago. Um, but when did you find that aftermarket air conditioning was starting to pick up in the industry, and that hot rodders and muscle car people and truck owners and stuff like that, where you're like, this would be really nice? Because I know for me, at the point, and I'm 49, like I want to be comfortable at this point in my life. I don't want to get in a car or a truck and get beat up. I want to turn the AC on, be cool, enjoy myself. When did you really see that need start to pick up?
You know, of course, when I first started here, it was a big learning process. I don't think I really realized what was going on out there, what the demand was, and what
Yeah,
kind of cars and trucks people had. I was working out of a catalog, but as I learned more about it and more about the vehicles and what these guys and gals were trying to do with them, as far as just basic stuff of air conditioning or custom stuff and really show stuff and all like that, then I realized, man, this is a huge market, type thing. So it was
yeah.
probably 3 or 4 years down the line before I started seeing that type of stuff and then really start understanding it and knowing what the needs are with it. And it's just grown tremendously since then.
So let me get an idea. How many kits do you move a month? And when I say kits, I'm talking about for everything, for old hot rods all the way up to newer vehicles.
You know, I could probably safely say there may be somewhere around 500 a month, something like that.
Yeah,
And then that doesn't even start to go into the partials. Where somebody
sure.
already has maybe an inside unit or something like that, and they need everything else to go with it. Underneath the hood and so forth. There's a tremendous amount of that stuff going on.
So you guys, so as opposed to just, I mean, you obviously sell full kits for different applications, but then if somebody has a car that or a vehicle that already has AC and they need components to refresh it, you guys take care of that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's an
I didn't know
aftermarket
that.
system, yeah, whether it's an aftermarket system they're trying to rehabilitate, or if it's a factory air car or truck that came from the factory with air, we
Really?
have replicated parts for all that stuff so we can help them put it all back together.
Oh, I didn't see. I didn't know that. I knew you did the full kits, and that's pretty amazing. But the fact that if I have a, I don't know, a 74 Trans Am or whatever the case is, 78 Trans Am with AC in it, and something under the dash breaks or the condenser goes, you guys resupply that then. And do you have? Let me ask you this: do you also have update kits?
Yeah, we do a lot of upgrades as far as trying to help out with the older type cars, where they were originally R12 systems. And of course, most
Sure.
everybody's using the 134A. So there's some of the older type stuff that's just not compatible with the
Yeah.
134A. So you need to go in and make a few changes here. So yes, we have several different updates, anywhere from evaporator kits to working with VIRs and POAs and STVs and all to help it be more compatible with the 134A.
Okay. So we did the kit that we put in our 81 Suburban,
Hmm.
right? What was pretty amazing was that, we and you guys will see this in the Road to Improvement series that we're launching shortly. What was pretty amazing was how the kit went in. And this is from my perspective as kind of a layman who was watching you do it, right? The old airbox came out, you have a complete block off kit, you have another condenser that goes under the dash. It was watching you guys do it was one thing, but seeing the finished product and how it operates, it looks 100% factory original which was pretty impressive. Like that, I didn't expect. I don't know why, but after everything was installed, it felt like that's the way the truck should have come, or came from the factory.
Yeah, the main difference in what you'll see with like our system in that particular truck, even if it had factory air in it, is it's going to clean the firewall off out underneath the engine
Yep.
compartment out, leave it nice and clean versus you used to have that, big evaporator
Hmm.
case out there and all. And a lot of guys really like that because it cleans it up and gives more room for,
Yep.
motors and motor conversions and so forth on the deal. But yeah, the big green deal, the unit, the mounting plate to mount it, and then the plate to cover the firewall, just cleaned everything up so nice and neat. And then we incorporated, as you remember, the factory style vents into the dash with a new dash
Yeah.
pad and all,
Oh yeah.
and so inside the truck to a certain extent, the cab area, like you said, it almost looks just like a factory air, setup inside there. The little new electronic control that we put in the
Hmm.
dash, very, very clean and
Yep.
neat and easy to work. So yeah, it's just it's all neat stuff for sure.
Yeah, and I mean we've probably got I probably put 4,000 miles on that truck,
Hmm.
maybe 4,500 miles since we saw you guys. I recently just took the Las Vegas and back in over 100-degree heat, and it's pretty amazing, right? When you have a vehicle of that size and you have a system that has the capacity to kind of cool that down is a wonderful thing. And I think one of the things that people should understand is when you do a system like when we did the truck, right? There were things that you guys found and not that you said, all right, you should upgrade this as well because you're doing the air conditioning system, right? So our truck came. Remember that we had that big three-blade fan,
Right, right.
right? I had never even seen a three-blade fan.
Myself either. Yeah, that was a
I
new one
had,
on me. Yeah,
but that was a factory original fan,
right, right. Probably
you
for a
know.
heater on the cab. It was that's some wall material right there. You can hang that up on the wall somewhere.
So I mean, we had that big fan. So when we did this thing, and I think this is something that people should be aware of, right? What other components do you think people should probably upgrade if and when they do an old air system in their vehicle?
Well, it's always very important to make sure that the radiator is going to be in really good shape or need a bigger one or aluminum one because
Which we
you,
did.
yep, exactly. Because the condenser in the AC system is going to create a heat load to the radiator. And maybe you were just fine without it there. The motor was running cool enough, but once you add that extra heat load to it, it may actually get it over the next hump where you want to try to run hot. The other deal is so important, and I can't emphasize this enough, is making sure we're talking about fan blades again, making
Hmm.
sure we have good airflow across that condenser out front to help keep head pressures down, which converts to cooler vent temperatures also.
Yeah, that, when we talked about the radiator, our truck had just a stock radiator. Our truck is, stock 350. We did replace the fan. We did replace the radiator. We new clutch in there. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people don't consider is a shroud.
Absolutely. You gotta have the fan shrouded, whether it be electric or mechanical, either way. And what this does, Mike, is it makes the air that the fan is pulling makes it pull through the complete radiator through the condenser versus just if it's out in the open, it's not going to do much at all. It's going to pull the air from outside the radiator and so forth.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the more cars that I see, over the time that I do this, they pop the hood and there's no shroud. There's just no
Yeah.
shroud. And I'll always ask you, I'm like, why don't you run a shroud? Well, we don't need a shroud. And I'm like, you kind of do. And it always boggles my mind that people think, nah, it's the fans there. It's an open air, engine compartment. It's like, no, the air has to be channeled,
Yes,
you
it
know?
does. Yep. Especially if you're with the air conditioning part of the thing and stop and go traffic and idling a lot and so forth and all, it's a must. Yep.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. I mean, one of the big things that we were always concerned about with this truck was that since we use it all the time, and it is, this is not a sports car, this is not a muscle car, this is a Suburban. So we use it as one, right? It sits in traffic. It has to go up different grades. It has to It has to do everything a Suburban does, which means basically function in every environment possible, whether it's driving through, 100-degree weather going to Las Vegas, or going down a trail in a dirt trail, or climbing up a steep grade like the Grapevine in California. And so cooling was a massive, massive thing for us. And, from a reliability standpoint, that was our number one thing. Is this system, properly upgraded with the other components, going to work, not only cool the truck, but keep the reliability? And it's been nothing but fantastic.
Well, that's good because that Suburban right there will definitely put the pressure on any system because of no headliner, a lot of glass in it, and a lot of area. So you got a lot of ground to cover to try to keep Mike cool in there, you know.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting when you saw it, we didn't have a headliner in the truck.
Right.
And then when I found out, and it was good, we were very fortunate because when we were down by you guys, it wasn't that hot. It was in the 80s or whatever. It wasn't terrible,
Right.
right? But when I was going to do to Vegas and we were getting temps of like 100, between 107 and 111 degrees, I was like, there is no way I'm going without a headliner. So we actually put some really nice thermal insulation in there, and we put a headliner in there because, and I don't think people realize this, your roof, especially if you have a dark color vehicle, will turn that vehicle into a hot box, right? Um, so we would get roof temperatures of almost 160 degrees without a headliner.
Well, you was fighting an uphill battle with it. There's no doubt about that. And what people got to remember also, when you turn an air conditioning system on and that vehicle is already hot inside, not only does it have to cool down the driver, but it has to cool down the seats, the floorboard, the
That's
door
right.
panels. Everything has to be cooled down,
That's
on
right.
there. So again, like I say, that particular vehicle right there will put the pressure on any system. But I think the Hurricane did okay for you. That sounded like it did really good.
Oh, it was shocking how well it did, and that was the whole thing. And it does, like when you do a system, um, and I think it goes to any older vehicle that you're building. I mean, this was such a bare bones vehicle because it was a Forest Service truck. It had no options in it, right? So the inner door panels weren't insulated. The roof was not insulated. The vinyl floor mats were not insulated. So we were really, and the windows weren't tinted. So essentially, you've got this massive metal box that is built like a big greenhouse, that the only thing it does is let heat and sunlight into it,
Exactly.
right? So little by little, we have been doing things like like I said, the roof is now insulated with a headliner. The floor is now covered in Dynamat with a new mat. The doors have been insulated. The only thing we haven't done is tint the windows. And I'm really kind of against that because I think the interior of that truck is so cool. I want people to be able to look in and see what it's like in there.
It's pretty unique. I mean, I was impressed just looking at one that was I'd call it a bare bones, truck like it was. The things we saw on the motor itself, such as fan blades and the pulley system that was on it, and then on the inside, seeing that no vents in the dash and the rubber floor mats and
Hmm.
metal roof and so forth like that. You just don't see too many like that at all. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a good old truck. Let me ask you this, Rick. So if somebody buys a system, they install it in their vehicle. For me, any type of aftermarket componentry comes down to the level of customer service, right? That's the biggest. So if people have questions, you have tech advisors, things like that.
We kind of wear several different hats, so everybody in the sales department will answer tech calls,
Okay.
including myself, and then we have people outside that if for some reason or another we can't answer somebody's question, we all get our heads together and we figure out a source of being able to get them the information they need to get the problem fixed. Customer service is very, very important to us around here, for sure.
Okay. With that said, do you also have, I'll ask you two questions. One, is this something the enthusiast can do, or do you have dealer recommended installers that you would prefer?
We do have dealer programs that a lot of them do installs of, but you know, if a guy has any kind of mechanical experience at all, even if it's a do-it-yourselfer, uh, especially on the units where it's vehicle specific because it's made for it, he should be able to do that, with a little bit of patience and some good tools to work with and all like that. He should be able to do it. Some of the more custom type stuff will surely offer some challenges for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's not comfortable at all doing the stuff, and there's some of them out there that just absolutely just don't want to have anything to do with the air conditioning other than turn it on and enjoy it in the vehicle, then we try to point them in that direction.
Okay. Does it matter? Does it matter the vehicles? So for instance, if somebody calls up and they're like, I got a 34 Ford, I want to put AC in there. Do you have kits for that? Do you add, and I guess the other question would be, will you dive into questions such as, has this vehicle already been modified? Is it stock? Because one of the cool parts was that when we were down at your facility, we saw all these, all these dashes, all these cabs of different vehicles. And that was so cool to me because like that's where you guys do the mock-up to actually manufacture the systems, no?
Right. So whenever we get into it doesn't matter if it's vehicle specific, but particularly in what you're talking about, a universal type or generic type
Mm-hmm.
application, we're not going to just say, here you are, here's a box full of parts. We want to dissect this thing from the get-go. So we'll start with the hurricane unit and advise the customer of the options there, the way the tubes exit the case, whether they go through the firewall or go around through the
Mm-hmm.
kick panel. And then also after that, once they get that figured out of what they want to do, offer different vent packages, different controls, so they can just kind of pick and choose what they want to be able to air condition their particular little project going on right there, anywhere from inside of it to even underneath the hood. So we are well known for helping with these custom type deals of special stuff and all to make sure that the customer knows what their options are and knows what they're getting to work with on there.
Gotcha. Okay. And does this hold true even for vehicles, say, because I've got it, all my vehicles are old, but when we talk about vehicles from like the 80s and 90s, things that might have, those older kind of bigger GM compressors, or if they're early 90s, kind of you know, the larger rounder ones. Do you have upgrade packages for that are more efficient than what's in the cars that they generally have?
Usually what you try to work with there is going back to where we talked about airflow, making sure that
Yeah.
the car's got good airflow through the radiator, through the condenser
Hmm.
area. And then there are things you can do with orifices and things like that that will help better with the 134A to make it work better on the deal. But two of the most important things again are the airflow across the condenser, which helps keep the head pressure down and
Yep.
converts into lower vent temperatures, and then work with depending on what the original vehicle was, whether it's a cycling system or it was a full compressor run all the time type deal. We work with those also.
Okay. Very, very cool. So Rick, how do you guys, I'll ask you one last question. How do you anticipate the needs of the hobby? So for instance, do you look at vehicles that are coming out now? Do you look at the technology that's out there and say, okay, eventually we're going to have to be able to provide this to our customers, or do you try to anticipate customer needs?
Of course, you work off of demand a lot. What's really popular, and that's then you go that route with it, whether you just have one system for it or whether you offer a lot of different options for it on the deal. But I'd say demand is the main thing. What the people are asking for, and it's grown even more in the last, I'd say, 6 or 7 years, to where that your square bodies like Big Green is,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes so popular. And I mean, that those units are going out the door as fast as what the older stuff is, the 47 through 72 stuff was. And same
Yeah.
thing with the Ford. We introduced the 73 through 79 deal, and they're moving very, very well. So you as you see the later type stuff is and I'm calling 70s and 80s
Right.
later type stuff. That is to us anyway.
Right.
So you see that demand going on, and you try to accommodate it and have things for those guys to work with.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Rick, I can't thank you enough for coming on and giving everybody a little insight. Like I said, we spent a couple of days down there with you guys. The operation was absolutely spectacular.
Thank you.
The product was even more spectacular, and it really helped keep right now the nice part is like it's 100+ degrees up here in California right now. It's so nice to be able to just jump in that truck, turn the key, turn the AC on, and you're just straight up comfortable. It makes such a difference. So I think for anybody who has been thinking about it or has been on the fence about upgrading your vehicle, don't hesitate any longer, because I will tell you that once it's done, you will be kicking yourself for not doing it sooner. I would absolutely, pick up the phone, give Rick at Old Air a call, and I'm sure anybody else there can help you out. But yeah, man, thank you. It's been just an absolute pleasure.
Sure, I've enjoyed it, and I enjoyed y'all being down here. Great meeting your whole crew and all. Hopefully, get to see you at SEMA.
We will absolutely be at SEMA. Yeah, we'll be there. I think the truck's going to be there. Odds are I'll probably be driving it there, which is fine because now it's got AC and I don't have to sweat. So
we can ride up and down the boulevard one night before it goes, right?
That's absolutely 100%.
Okay.
So, Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, we will see you in a couple of months.
Okay. Appreciate it, Mike. Y'all take care out there and stay safe.
All right, sir. Be well. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.